This is a brief introduction to water in the world, how water connects places. Water is one of our most precious environmental resources, making it extremely valuable. Without it, nothing can survive. It is an essential, renewable resource that occurs naturally on Earth. It can exist as a solid, such as ice in a glacier, a liquid, such as water in a river, or a gas, such as steam. This is a water cycle. It links together large areas of the natural environment. Water from the sea evaporates, condensates, and forms clouds. When the clouds get heavy, water falls as precipitation. The water that does not penetrate the ground runs towards rivers, lakes, and seas, and the cycle repeats. Water can also transpire from plants' leaves into the air as a vapor too. Let's define a few terms now. Accumulation is the process in which water pools in large bodies like oceans, seas, and lakes. Condensation is the process in which water vapor in the air turns into liquid water. Condensing water forms clouds in the sky. Evaporation is the process in which liquid water becomes water vapor. Water vaporizes from the surfaces of oceans and lakes, from the surface of the land, and from melts in snowfields. Precipitation is the process in which water falls from clouds in the sky in the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Subsurface runoff is the precipitation that flows in underground streams, drains, or sewers. Surface runoff is the precipitation that flows in surface streams, rivers, or canals. And finally, transpiration is the process in which some water within plants evaporate into the atmosphere. Water is first absorbed by the plant's roots, then later exits by evaporation through pores in the plant. Moving on to rainfall types. There are three rainfall types: orographic, frontal, and convectional. Orographic rainfalls occur when air is forced to rise due to the height of land masses, such as mountains. As the air cools, condensation forms, producing rain. As the air begins to fall from the highland, it warms up, creating dry regions. Frontal rainfalls occur when two air masses meet and the cooler air mass wedges itself under the warmer air mass. This forces the warm air to rise and cool, causing condensation and rain along a distinct line. Finally, convectional rainfalls occur when temperatures during the day warm the ground, causing warm air to rise rapidly and condense at high altitude. This produces heavy rain and thunderstorms. This is a diagram that shows the distribution of water in the world. As you can see, only 2.5% of the water in oceans is potable, meaning healthy to drink, and much of this water is in the form of glaciers. All humans rely on the remaining water to survive, which is why we must be sustainable. How does water connect people and places? Well, first of all, water plays a very important part in where people decide to live in the first place, because people rely on water to survive. The availability of water determines how people in different places live because these water sources need to be shared by the communities. Generally, there are three factors relating to water that influence where people choose to settle. 1. Historical and environmental factors. Towns and cities have developed along rivers and near lakes and other freshwater sources. 2. Agriculture. People rely on fresh water to grow crops and farm animals. And 3. Trade and transport. People use rivers as transport networks. Rivers allow products and people to move easily from one place to another, connecting the communities established on their banks. Moving on to riverine landforms. First off, the river basin itself. A river basin is like a tree. It has lots of small streams which join to form tributaries, which later join to form the main river. When it rains, the water drains into streams, then into tributaries, and finally into the main river. The river basin is the area of land drained by a main river and its tributaries. The area of high land marking the edge of the basin is called a watershed. Basically, the source is where a river begins. A watershed is an area of high land forming the edge of a river basin. A confluence is the meeting of two or more bodies of water. A channel is where the river flows. A tributary is a stream or small river flowing into a main river. And the mouth is where a river flows into the lake or the sea. There are two other types of landforms: upstream landforms and downstream landforms. Let's discuss each type briefly. Upstream landforms are formed in the upper reaches near the river's source, where the channel is often narrow and deep, and the gradient steeper than further downstream. Some possible upstream landforms are V-shaped valleys, rapids, and waterfalls. V-shaped valleys are formed when the turbulent, fast-flowing waters of the upper reaches of a river generate corrosion as rocks crash against each other and the riverbed. Erosion cuts downwards more than it does sideways, resulting in a V-shaped valley. Rapids are a section of a river with a relatively steep gradient that causes the velocity and turbulence of water to increase. The river becomes shallower as a result, and large rocks are exposed above the surface. Waterfalls occur where water plunges over a vertical drop in the course of a river. They are most commonly found where the river channel is narrow and deep. When a river comes into contact with a harder layer of rock, the rate of erosion slows. As the water plunges over the edge of the harder rock, it creates turbulence, which erodes any underlying softer rock. Downstream landforms are in the lower reaches of a river that is characterized by depositional landforms. The water speed there is slow. Downstream landforms include floodplains, natural levees, meanders, oxbow lakes, and deltas. A floodplain is the flat land on either side of a river. It stretches from the banks of the river channel over the area inundated, or flooded, when the river is at its peak. This landform changes over time. During floods, the waters of a river are capable of eroding, transporting, and depositing vast amounts of sediment. Natural levees are sediment-full floodwaters spread out across the floodplain. This sediment settles on the ground, and the greatest amount of deposition occurs close to the channel. This causes a natural levee of elevated ground to develop on either side of the main channel. Meanders are the repeated curves of the river channel. They are formed when the moving water in a river erodes the outer banks and widens its valley. Meanders are more common in areas where rivers flow through flat land. Meanders are formed from deep pools and shallow riffles, which are shallow gravel bars, in the river channel. As water travels past a riffle, it is deflected towards the outside bank. As the river undercuts the outside bank, the meander migrates outwards. Point bar deposits build up on the inside of the loop. Oxbow lakes are formed when the meander loops grow larger and larger until the channels almost meet. During floods, there is an increase in the amount and speed of water. This may cause the river to cut straight across the narrow neck of land, separating two meander loops. The old section of the former channel are called cutoffs or oxbow lakes. These lakes in time fill with sediment and become a waterhole, or billabong as they call it in Australia. Finally, deltas. Deltas are the landform features that develop at the mouth of a river. As the water of a river reaches the sea or lake, there is a drop in speed and the river's ability to support its suspended load declines. As a result, much of the sediment load is deposited near or at the mouth of the river, and over time, a delta develops. Depending on factors such as wave action, currents, and tide, different types of delta can develop. However, some rivers, particularly those located on coasts with a significant tidal range, do not form deltas. Rather, they enter the sea through an estuary, which is a partly enclosed coastal body of water. Let me leave you with a picture of river valley landforms. This diagram outlines most of what has been explained. Hope you learned something today, and thank you for watching this video. See ya!